Hi, welcome to Expert Talks at MAAVRUS. This is the interview series with thought leaders in the AI, analytics, and transformation space. My name is Mahadevann Iyerr, Mahaa for short. I'm your host for today. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MAAVRUS, which is a managed marketplace for on-demand analytics and business transformation services. Our guest for today is Dr. Manish Gupta. Manish is the Senior Director and Principal ML Scientist at Microsoft. He's their Global Data Science Leader. Prior to Microsoft, Manish worked with American Express as their Vice President and COE Head, leading machine learning and data science research. He's also held analytics leadership role at Citibank and InfoEdge. Um, Manish started his career with DRDO, which is interesting. We'll talk about in a while. And Manish is a PhD in mathematics from IIT Delhi. Um, Manish, so thank you so much for making time and talking to us at Expert Talks at MAAVRUS.
Yeah, thanks, Ma. I think it's a great uh, introductions that you have given. Not sure that deserve that one, but I think it's good to connect and thanks for your invite for those kind of talks. I think look forward for more discussions going forward.
Thank you. So my first question is, you started off with DRDO as a scientist. You worked for 7 years parallelly. I think you also completed your doctorate and PhD in mathematics from IIT Delhi. And then you made a shift to a private sector, right? And ever since with 24/7 and then City, you have been in the private sector, right? So just wanted to understand from you, why and how did you decide to take the move from a government sector to the private sector, and what has been the experience, and also how has your role in DRDO as a scientist help you succeed in the roles that you have ever since played?
Okay, thanks, Ma. I think first of all, as you rightly pointed out, being a scientist in DRDO, I was fortunate to really started working to the area of neural network. And in fact, the term was not coined that time, machine learning or deep learning. It was used to call a data mining kind of affairs. I remember almost 2 decades back, I built my first deep learning models. And that too also for some of the analytics efforts that were being part of the DRD. Even I was working to the mathematics modeling simulations, networks as a part of the DRDO, being one of the leading roles working for various armed forces, naval as well as the air forces, building some kind of solutions for that. So it excited, this field actually excited me. Why can't I really do more research into that? And that is where I enrolled myself to the PhD program from IIT Delhi as a part-time scholar. But as you know, that PhD hardly happens part-time. You have to work both the things parallelly and devote fully both the efforts. And interestingly, my guide was like, she was a Professor B. Chandra. She was like pretty much spent a lot of time with me in terms of grooming me, in terms of understanding the basics about those things. And at the same time, she was very forcefully asked me to really put those kind of things into the applications. I was working for National Crime Records Bureau. I was working for some of the genetic projects. And in fact, PhD itself, I kind of 15 research paper I published, which have now more than 600 citations as well. And having that background in my hand, I thought although I was doing pretty good, in fact, I was being awarded as a Scientist of the Year award as well as Technology Award in the same year while I was in DRDO. And then I realized that maybe this kind of technology can really help the industry as well. Because as you know, after 2008 recessions and all, the people were like trying to embrace the value of those data science field and understand what the hidden patterns that data can drive. And that is the domain that I was working upon. And I realized that that is the right time for me to move to the private sector. Unfortunately, I happened to work in City. In fact, that time the Hadoop, the big data technology was emerging. I was started leading that effort from the City group. I was the one who part of that team who basically developed first and big data solutions for the financial industry. So I think having worked into this area, it basically not an easy decision. In fact, just to share my personal thing, me and my wife both were in government jobs, and leaving both, like my wife was a government teacher, and leaving both of us left the jobs at the same time. It's kind of unheard, but I took the decision. I'm happy that I took the decision, and now I'm doing good, being part of the industry, being providing the value from the data to the various business problems and helping overall, I would say society at large. I can give you some examples also from the InfoEdge. Maybe I will talk about that separately.
Sure. Excellent. Very interesting. Now, in fact, you spoke of InfoEdge. My next question comes there. So, you started off with 24/7, which is a services company. You moved to Citibank in the banking sector. Then you moved to InfoEdge, which is the parent company for brands like Naukri and Jeevan Sathi and 99 Acres, Shiksha, right? So purely internet digital companies. They moved back to MX, which is again, the banking sector, and now you have moved to Microsoft in the technology sector, right? So I have two questions on that. My first part of the question is, so obviously all of these are separate domains. So how important did you feel was, gaining domain knowledge in each of these spaces? And in InfoEdge, almost there are 4 domains that you are trying to straddle at the same time, right? So how important was it to understand the domain knowledge, and what were some of the practical approaches that you took to build your own domain knowledge and exposure, at the same time also improving the domain knowledge levels of your team?
Sure, thank you. I think I'm glad you asked these questions about. First point, I would like to prove that analytics is agnostic to the industry. I myself is a live example. I started in defense. I worked in BPO. I worked in finance. I worked in internet. Now in technology. I think that's kind of telling you about the data is kind of the key ingredients to it. And if you have the intelligence to mine this data, create intelligence and solutions for the business, I think everybody loves it. However, you also made a good point about the domain. I think, see, one of the challenge most with data scientists like faces is they're good in their science, they're good in their algorithms and all. But in order to connect the value for the business, I think the domain knowledge is, to me, is one of the prime most thing that someone should possess. So the way I gather this domain knowledge by speaking to the business leaders within the organization, spend some time with the PM team, try and understand the problem of definitions. I also try to spend a lot of times in terms of learning a particular domain. For example, you mentioned about the InfoEdge. Once I joined InfoEdge I consider is like kind of life events kind of company, whether it's a job, whether it's a wedding, whether it's about property, whether it's about education. So having working in InfoEdge gives me a good idea about the actual nerves of the business, as well as how the internet users basically think about the internet users. It's more all about the attention span is very small, and as well loyalty is very small, and people are more interested to know about me myself. It's more about that. If you're not able to serve at the same moment, I think the person is gone. So you need to create a solution which is highly personalized, unlike the segment-based approach or some kind of high level of the grouping that you may need to do. You need to really pinpoint what is the career journey of an individual so that you could really recommend the right set of the jobs to the guys. What is the profile for an individual so that you could offer a right set of partners to them and help them to achieve their life events goals or life milestones, I would say. So I think domain knowledge to me is the key most thing that you could think about applying the analytics or the data science to any business problems. Without that, I think none of the data science solutions can really fit it. So I think that's where I feel like I'm fortunate enough to really work with the great leaders, the great team, as well as myself also religiously spend some time to understand the business and obviously that really helped me to grow as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, now the other part of the question is, you moved from City, which is obviously both It's got its own internet banking. It's also, got its physical presence, right? Then you went to a purely internet company, it's entirely digital. InfoEdge, all properties are entirely digital, right? Back to American Express, which is again phygital in nature, right? Got the physical presence, predominant physical presence, and some bit of internet banking, right? Um, as a analytics and the AI leader, right? Did you find um applying analytics, AI, and transformation in internet-only, digital-only companies far more easier and productive compared to the phygital world? So, what are some of the nuances? What worked well for you in the digital side? What are some of the things that you think can be looked at while looking at a phygital type of business? And
Okay, yes, sure. I think the one basic difference between digital and physical is the kind of the data volume velocity that digital brings to you. Because each and every customers create a lot of footprints, and those companies really understand that there is a value to that particular type of data. They have a large presence of the data, kind of gathering from processes, as well as plenty of the data to really play with. And at the same time, the internet companies are pretty open, because it's not like the value add that they wanted to add to their solutions. It's a fight for their survival. If they don't do it, they don't do personalizations, they don't do intelligence, don't leverage machine learning, they're gone. So that's where they're more proactive in that nature. However, physical, like, I'm fortunate to work with the American Express, although they are very like 170 years old company, but still they are pretty startup in their mindset. They employ people with that different backgrounds. They also have the very great leadership team. They give good confidence to their the new folks, help them to grow the team, and at the same time invest into the resources. I can give you an example at American Express. I was the first one who actually leveraged the deep learning models for the fraud detections. We built the GPU-based real-time inferencing engines with just fraction of milliseconds. They are able to really produce the intelligence which helps them to detect the frauds. And think about the 10 million transactions happening every day. And we were able to deploy those kind of solutions at American Express because there was the willpower that leadership has it to be ahead to the race. And in fact, the work that I carried out has been presented into the GTC conference of NVIDIA. We collaborated with NVIDIA, and their CEO itself has mentioned about that technology in his keynote address to the GTC conference, and that showcased that the kind of ahead to the race is important. Even you are a physical company or you are a traditional company, I would rather use the term, or even if you are a big company, think about if you wanted to be ahead to the race to your competitions, that is the key edge that you could provide to the business. And that's why I feel like there's some inertia in some companies, but I feel like having seen such a success, I think every company is now investing into this kind of technology.
Excellent. So what you're saying is for internet only digital first company, it's a question of survival. They understand the data, their data is part of their culture. They understand that for their own survival, they need to, pursue and monetize and use it for impacting, user experience and, retaining them. For traditional companies, like you rightly put, you're saying that data is going to give them a competitive edge. And so, the thought leaders among them, the early adopters among them, and the more nuanced among them will adopt AI and intelligence and build a data culture quickly so that they can stay ahead.
Yes, I think perfectly summarized it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, now, since you spoke of culture as one of the parts of it, right? And you said like how American Express, gave as a leadership, as an environment, ensured that data science leaders were able to flower, the teams were able to flower and contribute. So in terms of being for an analytics team to be successful, right? How important is the role of the business leadership and the culture in the company. And how do you contrast? So you work obviously in City, InfoEdge, Amex, and now Microsoft. All of them are obviously very high on their data maturity, so to speak, right? But you also work with 24/7, and but then generally, given your overall experience, right? How important is data maturity and a data culture in a company for AI teams to be successful?
Okay, sure. I think point out very important point about the culture. See, the culture comes from most of the time from top to bottom, where the company really creates good values in terms of what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve. And that's what the culture basically set for the whole team. And while I was working with the whether it's a InfoEdge, whether it's American Express, I think the important thing that I like is about their culture. The culture for being hunger about creating intelligence, create value for the customer, improving their customer experience, and the kind of a value that they would like to drive from those kind of data. And obviously, one is about the business leaders should be really like buying. You need a buy in terms of building the right team. In fact, I was able to build from 0 to 20, 20 to 100 members team while I was in InfoEdge and American Express respectively. But the point I'm trying to bring it up is one is the business leadership buying as well as their investment to really grow the team. But I would also give an onus to the data science leaders and teams also. You need to create a good sales pitch, good ROI for their business leaders to justify that investment. See, it's not about one way that you just getting the blessings and the investment from the leaders, but they also need some kind of ROI at the end of the day. If you can't really translate this investment to the ROI, that's why many of the data science team might fail, because you need to talk to a language which business leader understand. You need to really give them a good sales pitch that this is the ROI you could generate. This is the kind of products that could help their customer. I think until unless as a data science leader, if you are not able to kind of create a kind of storyline which really appeal to the business leaders, get their mind, at the same time helps your team to build and motivate them in terms of, if you do that, it's not only delivering the value to the business, but at the same time, they themselves would eventually grow. I think that's where it's important, not from a cultural, from a top, but at the same time, within the team also, the cultures needs to be more like kind of growth mindset. In fact, in being in Microsoft, we believe in the kind of growth mindset kind of a culture where everyone really appreciate others' works. At the same time, we always try to improve our next version, improve ourselves. So that's where I feel like culture is important from a business perspective, but from a team perspective, and at the same time converting all those values from the data to the end users, which is the business as well as the customer.
Got it. So essentially, you're saying is, so business leadership needs to obviously have a trust in data as an engine for growth, and it has to be reciprocated by the analytics team in terms of being able to articulate a ROI, both for business benefit as well as end consumer benefit. And you're saying that when that happens, the culture starts building. It's a virtuous cycle, and equally it also helps motivate the team members that they are contributing to the larger good of the business and the consumer.
Absolutely. I think you are a good, I would say, chat GPT for me to summarize all those things. Thank you. Maybe I'm more verbose in my speaking, but you are very concise into that. Thank you.
I mean, so since you mentioned ChatGPT, so let's get to ChatGPT now, right? I mean, any discussion on AI analytics, is not even or complete or doesn't even start without talking of generative AI and ChatGPT, right? Now, so my question is, with generative AI, ChatGPT, and new deep learning and generative AI models and transformer networks, all these type of things coming in. How do you see that impacting the data science world and ecosystem as it exists today? Do you see that getting impacted? How do you see that, moving from here?
Okay, sure. I think generative AI is, I would say, an amazing technology which can empower each and every human being to really make use of it. See, if you wanted to know about something, you can easily do. Even the kids have started using it for their own set of projects and all. And in fact, we being in Microsoft and being a part of see, I'm fortunate enough to be always part of those organizations who are leading into that front. Well, I was in DID, the deep learning, machine learning was growing. Now I'm part of Microsoft, generative AI, open AI is like part of our culture. So we are building many co-pilots. I think you might have heard of the term of co-pilots within our ecosystems to help our consumer base, our partner base, and as well as grow the business. And the way we are using it, I think I was astonishing to see these kind of outcomes coming from the product like thing, like a generative AI. The one interesting facts I would like to tell about generative AI is it is kind of democratizing the AI to the larger community. Now, the kind of inertia the data science was having it, or let's say software developer or other business users were having it, they feel like that it's only the maths and computer science kind of domain. Now, even a software developers can plug some of the APIs and can really do some prompt engineering and can do wonders. So my point here is generative AI is kind of democratizing the whole data science and AI field to the larger community benefit. And that's to me an inflection point, because now this, with the help of this generative AI kind of AI products, you could see that each and every one now able to build a kind of machine learning AI solutions, which is helping not only the business, but at the same time solving many key business problems which were required heavy investment earlier. Now, simply someone can really plug it for some of their use cases and can really do wonders. They don't need to worry about uh, too much investments, building large teams, and then coming some intelligence. Now there is like a plug and play kind of environment. But at the same time, I would also like to say that, because although just to add to that point, people might feel like that maybe data scientist jobs might get redundant. It may not be. I'm telling you from my experience, because the way the data scientist thinks is more like an iterative, more like kind of an optimization kind of problems. Even if you do the prompt engineering, in fact, we being in Microsoft, within my team, I created a task bed where generative AI can hallucinate a lot of things. But how you really check the hallucinations, how you do a API moderation so that some of the ethical issues, explainability part you could able to handle, how you are able to iterate, optimize in certain solution that is your right solution that you wanted to bring it up, and how you build a kind of loss function scenarios where you could optimize your solutions in a more iterative fashion, and how can you generate a feedback loop. These kind of understanding most of the data scientists possesses, unlike some of the business users or software developers, because they work in a mindset in like kind of pipeline kind of fashion. However, in many of the use cases, you could still see that it's kind of penetrating in the variety of use cases. I think many people have talked about it's kind of electricity now. It is powering everything, and it's going to happen. And to me, it's a inflection point, as I said, because a lot of things going to change. The way we think about NLP, the way we think about using them is going to dramatically change. And you may see n number of product solutions coming up using the generative AI technology. And it's going to be the technology for the future. And it's going to improve. And the kind of a vision that we were having it in the beginning, the world of the Terminator kind of movies, that AI can really do a lot of things, and that I feel like we are heading towards to that, and we are able to really giving a lot of societal impacts using the AI, which we were not able to do as much as we could have done it. Yeah, that's what my point was. Generative AI.
So essentially, with ChatGPT, OpenAI, generative AI coming in place, you're saying people who know what problem to solve and who are able to become solution architects or solution integrators, right? It's like the earlier days of where you were doing API integration with various other packages. Now you could actually build those type of things, integrate and create a solution, and not necessarily need to really be a data scientist to solve all the problems. I mean, you could take those models and plug it in and build it. Great. So my question actually is on that itself. So when I started off in the analytics space around 17, 18 years back, from moving from a Six Sigma black belt lean process engineer to analytics when I pivoted around 17, 18 years back. I moved in more in the business analytics domain, so to speak, right? Which is business is a problem, then you're trying to solve for that and tell them, obviously, you didn't build too complicated models or whatever, maybe some amount of predictive modeling, but predominantly you were essentially trying to address a particular problem that the business faced at that particular point in time. We called it business analytics, whatever, right? And then the whole thing of predictive analytics came in, machine learning, AI, deep learning, all this type of stuff came in. And I also find that during my time, if my focus was more on trying to understand the domain and spend time with the business. As it started migrating, the ML and AI engineers, though as smarter, more smarter, they actually the focus has been building on more deep learning models, long term, integrating the data engineering, the data flow, the output, integrating endpoints. So it is also, there's been a lot of, for lack of a better word, tech capability that has become very, very important to be a successful data scientist as well. Right.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
today what I see is when you talk to anybody who's an AI engineer or ML engineer, the general thing is I'm building models, which is I'm optimizing it, I'm learning networks, I'm putting it in. And so if the typically AI ML engineers and teams when you talk about, they're talking about strategic, long-term breakthrough models or whatever, which will have significant impact, strategic impact on the business. But then when I talk to them about responsive business analytics, which is business is a problem, how do you respond to it? I see less and less of that, or I'm hearing less and less of that. And the general feeling I get is, oh, we've got dashboards, the business can actually make sense out of it type of stuff, right? So and then in this comes the whole generative and the chat GPT part. So do you see this getting even more moving the same separate direction where you have data scientists and ML engineers and AI engineers really building breakthrough systems, whereas most of the business users will need to actually be good prompt engineers to really understand from the data by themselves. Do you see that? Do you see business engineers, business users becoming a lot more of prompt engineers or learning prompt engineers, so to speak? Or how do you see that evolving?
So I think you bring it up a great point in terms of there's sometimes disconnect or between business users versus the AI ML engineers. One is more towards the technology side, one is another is from a business side. How can this we can bridge that gap so that business can appreciate the technology and technology can benefit the business? I think that's where I feel like the systems like generative AI can really very helpful. In fact, I can tell you one examples. We are building something like Insights Copilot, where a business users, unlike writing a kind of a hardcore SQL query, they can simply write an NLP query saying that I need to know about top trends in my offer, some kind of different patterns, some intelligence, and the systems can able to translate that simple NLP query to the actual SQL queries or a kind of a graph query, which can able to really fetch amount of the data, not only amount of the data, but able to summarize the data, creating some kind of business summary around that. And that can kind of bridge the gap between business users and the AI engineers. But my understanding here is the way we are started using the technology. The idea is to have the business users in such a way that with the less friction, they don't need to really reach out to the analyst team to generate set of report, download from the dashboards. Rather, they want actually actionable recommendations. From this data, they are seeing this pattern. If you to take these actions, that would benefit that. I think that kind of a, I would say, virtual cycles being started. At least I could see from my team, the kind of solution that we are building right now in Microsoft is essentially driving up the data to the more closer to the business. Ultimately, the business should get benefit from the data. The consumer should get benefit from the data. It can only happen when we are able to translate the data and the intelligence in the language which business can understand. At the same time, business can able to ask the queries about the data, the language that they are comfortable with. And that's where I feel like generative AI kind of technology can really help to bridge that gap, which were not that fluent earlier, as it is being happening now. So I feel like the things are evolving pretty fast, and the kind of technology now we are started building it upon. You will soon see these kind of products coming into the market where business feel more empowered, more connected to the data, and that's why the more value and ROI might come. That's what I feel say.
No, I think very nicely articulated. What you're saying is it's almost like as people start using it, asking questions in their own language,
Yeah.
obviously generative AI will respond like ChatGPT does, and then without really trying to call it prompt engineering, you're saying people will be able to prompt better, ask better questions. Generative AI will also be able to respond, so it will keep building on itself, right? I mean,
Yes.
this brings me to an example. I mean, you may think I'm from antediluvian ages. So when I started my career, we used to have stenos, right? We used to have typewriters. So as sales officers and sales engineers, we used to just tell the steno that, for this particular letter, we put a few comments and then they would, they would essentially type it out, right? And then you sign it
Yeah.
and send your quotations and all that. I'm talking of, uh, pre 95, 96, still email become a lot, a lot more all prevailing type of stuff. And then when we started getting email, when we had access to email, so many of us, at least I, for the first 6 to 8 months, struggled because you had never drafted an email on your own, right? So it was a experience, right? Because you used to ask someone that, just send this response. Somebody would type it out, you would just review it, as opposed to, writing your own email. Right. And
Yeah.
and then now if someone were to say, okay, will you use a steno? You will never use that because
Yeah.
you're very comfortable writing your language. And now with obviously all those help in terms of grammatical checks and word checks and spelling check, you're a lot more comfortable. So in some sense, I'm saying fast forward 20, 25 years, now we are saying prompting will become second nature. The way we use right now
Yeah.
internet to buy stuff, prompting will become second nature is what you're saying. And you're saying,
Absolutely.
okay, so you're saying it is not really it'll be good to learn. You're saying as it becomes more and more all prevailing, people will start learning a lot more. That's something that will come in as a silent skill that will emerge. That's what you're saying. Have I
So I
understood
think
it
both the
right?
sides, like the technology would become more smarter, and people
Correct.
would end up of using those technology in a more smarter way, I would say, because it's something like that. Both the side would grow eventually. See, no one was using the mobile earlier. Now everyone is using it, and everyone knows how to use it, and the mobile apps and all able to serve them the way they wants to have it. I think it's an ecosystem that being getting created where the business users are end up of getting the intelligence what they're looking at their fingertips whenever they want. So I think we are coming into that era, I would say, where you will see that this kind of technology can help to grow everyone who are using the technology.
Got it. So now, so then let's come to the part of, so generative AI obviously uses deep learning models in the back end and, gives results, tries to understand what prompt is being provided. Equally, it is deep learning. So in some sense, also a black box, right? And so there is this whole concept of explainable AI that is coming in, right? So when you use decision trees, your accuracy levels may be limited, but your ability to explain why what is happening is far higher. You get into deep learning models, the accuracy levels are very high, but understanding what's really happened in the back end in terms of the various factors is difficult to understand, right? And then there are with this whole the way data privacy security issues are coming, regulations are coming, where companies would like to have control on data. There is also this whole concept of explainable AI coming into practice, right? So again, your thoughts on that. Do you think that as we become more explainable, will it really impact the efficacy of models? Because then you will have to only pick factors which are, where you can actually correlate very clearly. Or do you see new technology trends emerging, which will give a comfort to the business while using deep learning capabilities?
I think explainable AI is the most important topics once you start using the AI, because everybody has a concerns about it and they are valid concerns, whether it's about privacy, secrecy, whether it's about the biasness into the systems, whether something might be an issue with the model itself. And to me, it's not like reducing the efficacy of the model, but rather helping us to understand the model outcome better. See, there are things like SHAP's values and all, Lime, all those things were existed for some time. But even responsible AI has a broader umbrella of problems to address. And this field is pretty growing. I got accustomed to this kind of a technology while I was working with the American Express because they want each and every decisions to be communicated to the end customers. If they are saying that you have we believe that this is a fraudulent transaction, we believe your credit score is low, we want to answer that why it is low. So it's not like that you can just take random decisions from the model basis certain pattern and you're not able to explain to the customer end user. End users also have a right to know about why this outcome has happened because they have an impact through that. Think about a financial industry. If they're not able to grant a loan just because some random model is saying, so it's not like trust. You are not trying to build trust within the technology. Explainable AI is trying to build that trust. There are a lot of investment happening into explainable AI. In fact, whatever we do in Microsoft, explainable AI is the important topic also that we also think about. Like, if we understand this model, why this outcome is coming. In fact, we built something called our customer reputation scores, where each and every customers who are subscribing to us, we're trying to generate a kind of a reputation scores for them, trying to understand whom we could able to grow, whom we could give more quotas and all those things. And a lot of decisions are being making because of that scores. And we build an explanatory layer trying to understand that why the score is low, why the score is high, and what are the key factors driving the scores up and down. And that's where we build a lot of technology on top of our solutions, as well as also did feature engineers in such a way that each of those features, whatever we are bringing, have a good correlations with respect to the objective function that we want to achieve. In that case, the kind of solution that we are currently building, or even anyone would build, I would suggest to everyone who is listening to the talk also, whenever you're building an AI solution, think about exploratory part of it. It would not only like try to solve the problem, but at the same time help you to understand the model as well as some of the downside of the model impact also. Because sometimes model is at the end of the day is a objective functions. It might not really do correct decisions at all the cases. It relies on the past data. So in order to have understanding of the data, the features, the models, the global explanations, local explanations, each and every decision you make using the model, you need to really communicate back to the business users that why the decision has been taken. And that's why part of those explanatory tools that is emerging, that is already there, start using it. I think that's very important.
Good. So you use the word responsible AI. So is responsible AI a combination of explainable AI and ethical AI? Is that what you would say?
Yeah, I think responsible AI is a big umbrella term where you not only try to explain the models, you try to address the bias, you try to bring more trust into the systems, you try to ensure there's no leakage to the privacy and all those things. There's no let's say the downside of the model. So if you search about the responsible AI, it's have around 7-8 different components. Explainability is one of the components which try to ensure that the model is explainable. But responsible AI is kind of more like kind of policy driven kind of things where you want to ensure that whatever policy you set for the AI models to function, it is kind of under that particular governance. And that's where, while I was working with American Express, they invested a lot of time and energy to build the responsible AI. I was like one of the person who was leading that effort of responsible AI while I was in American Express. But that is the kind of a reason every regulators are essentially looking forward from my AI solution, because that's where they wanted to build trust into the technology. You could build trust into the technology once you build all the ingredients, components of the responsible AI into your AI product and solutions.
Got it. Got it. So you say responsible AI obviously, has to take care of regulation, control, bias and all that, but you're saying
Yes.
it's much more important in terms of connecting the level of both trust with both your business users as well as end consumers.
Yes.
Right.
And
So
regulators also. Regulator also.
and
The
regulator
regulators
also.
also, yeah. They also feel like that you're not going beyond because I can give you an example. Some of the variables are like ethical side or are not allowed to really have a being part of the model because of certain regulatory requirements. Fine. See, you can't discriminate people basis their age, basis their gender, all those things.
Correct.
And what happens sometimes the data can build those kind of correlations which can ultimately can have an implicit relationship about that. So in order to address these kind of biases, you need to have those kind of components to your model so that although you're not bringing that features of bringing that kind of informations to the model, but at the same time, implicit information or biasness can also get addressed using this kind of a solution if you build into your solution.
Okay, great. So you're saying not only explicit factors which discriminate, even implicit factors should not be allowed, and that is why responsible AI understanding the details becomes very important.
Yes.
Got it. Got it. Excellent. So now let's talk of AI and the future of AI, how it is moving forward. The adoption of AI, the way it is happening, and then there's the whole future of work, which is partially due to the pandemic, but even otherwise now it started accelerating a lot more. A lot more of remote work is happening. A lot more of freelance work is happening. A lot of fractional work is happening. A lot of stuff is happening. A lot of collaborative work is also happening, right? It is the pandemic actually, in some sense also help disrupt this mindset that a lot of it has to happen in physical spaces only. So that is also happening, right? So remote collaboration, remote problem solving is happening on one side. On the other side, with future of AI, right, ability to access data, ability to access intelligence is also increasing. The ability to really monitor and track the quality of output is also increasing. So where do you see future of AI and future of work? Somewhere converging. Um, can we just possibly think of and paint a picture of how the future of work and future of AI is likely to work together, and how will it possibly look?
Okay. So I think if you talk about work, if you talk about AI, the only terms comes in my mind is productivity. See, and that's where the technology can help to increase productivity while we are doing the work. And that's where I feel like that people going to become more productive in less amount of time, and at the same time would have more quality time for their personal life, for their happiness, for their well-being, and for their fitness, all those things. And that's where the technology can help the human mankind as well. And that's where I feel like the future is going. We are into this where I'm sitting at my home, I'm talking to you, I'm able to share my viewpoints. You are able to really socialize it also to different platforms. It is happening because the knowledge is not a prerogative of few intelligence people. They just sit in a particular room. It is now democratizing to everyone. And that's where you will see that. And I am not an expert for all the things. I might be knowing only particular area, but can I learn from others? And learning, growth, the work efficiencies, productivity going to increase as we post pandemic, as we started working in a more collaborative fashions. We started using more technology. It is helping us to grow. It is helping us to learn. It is now able to learn from any of the great leaders, great experts in any of the domains. If if I decide today I want to learn this topic, I want to do that task, I'm able to do at my fingertip at while sitting at home. So that kind of productivity enhancement is happening. So we being a human becoming more empowered using this technology. It means work is becoming productive. That's the future for me. And once we become more productive, we will have more better time for our well-being as a human. That is also, I think, important for our happiness, for our friends and family. So you'll get more quality time for your friends and family, for your well-being, if you are more productive at work. So that's where I feel future. The second future I decide think about the technology, because the technology is helping to empower these kind of changes to happen. The future of technology is also exponentially growing, because as you see, you hardly go to any of the government offices to do a task, whether it's the bill submission, whether it's about booking, anything you want to do, you can do it at your fingertips. It means that amount of time which you were sitting earlier in the queue, now the technology is kind of cutting down. You have that amount of time for your side. To me, technology is also, I think, the future is the great and it's essentially exponentially increasing, because where we were earlier, we came here. Now we have that kind of technology and we have more maturity level. Think about where we could go further. So to me, the work and technology becoming more productive, becoming more integrated, and at the same time, the success of human mankind also would grow for their well-being. In fact, we being Microsoft also, we always say that yeah, each and every members of the planets or the person in the planet, we would like to empower them to do more. I think that's what our vision for Microsoft also. And that's where you see all our productivity apps or our business apps are also based on that kind of vision. So it means we are growing as a human, we are growing with the help of the technology, and that's where the work is going ahead. And I'm happy about that.
Great. So essentially what you're saying is future of AI and technology will influence work to become more, by being more collaborative, being able to learn more and grow more will make people more productive. So you end up having a lot more time for your personal life. And you're
Yeah.
saying the impact of AI and technology, even in the personal life, is in terms of usage and access to services is going to be a lot more easier. So like you said, standing in queues is not necessarily everything is going to be e-enabled. So which means the real quality time that you want to spend with your societal network or family and friends is going to increase. So you see
Yes.
AI impacting not only the future of work, but future of quality life as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliantly articulated. Thank you. So that brings me to my last question. I read in one of your blogs where you said that you should think like a child, right?
Yes.
And I think you said it in the context of what takes to be a good data scientist or ML engineer or AI engineer. So what would be your top two or three advice for aspiring or a budding AI professional?
Okay, sure. I think thanks. I'm glad you asked this question. See, very first advice, as you mentioned, I've written to my blog also, behave like a child. See, the moment you behave like a child, if you think about what the child possesses, their curiosity to get learn more, they would like to are more inquisitive about their kind of question being happening. Now you could talk about the data. They are also eager to learn always. They have a quick learning skills. They also imitate. They have no fear to really fail, and they they kind of are like passionate about what they do. I think that's the quality I expect that each and every data scientist should possess, and that's why I always say that behave like a child. I myself like also behave like a child always. Every day, 15 minutes of my time I religiously spend to learn something more. That's why 20 years back, which I whatever learned, I mean, maybe obsolete now, but I'm still relevant because I was able to really upgrade myself. So first thing is about behave like a child, which helps you to solve many of those things. But to me, there are four important areas that our data scientists should do. First things about the domain knowledge. Until unless you grasp up the domain knowledge, you understand the business, why this data is coming, what are the nuances of the data. I think any solution you build may not really helpful and succeed. The domain knowledge is important. The second thing is about, to me, the math skill. If you're trying to use an algorithms or a technology, you need to understand the basic limitation of these science behind it, so that you understand in such a situations you may able to use it or may not able to use it. You would able to appreciate better into the algorithm. Third to me is the computer science, which is more like a coding part of it. How you can't really write a kind of table in an Excel and all. You need to write a program and code in order to make this particular technology and talk to your data. And the last and the most important thing to my mind is communication skill. It means you should be able to communicate well in a right point of time in a more storytelling fashions to the business and users who need to have a confidence about your solutions, who need to really understand what is the value of that thing. The communication skill, presenting your morals, solutions to the end consumer as well as business is also very important. To me, I think these are the four areas to really excel: domain knowledge, math, computer science, and the communication, as well as behave like a child. I think anyone can become a good data scientist to my mind.
Very wonderfully articulated, Manish. Really enjoyed, speaking with you, listening to your thoughts and insights. Um, Thanks once again for making time to talk to us at Expert Talks at MAAVRUS, and I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Ma. It's a great talking to you. I hope I'm able to answer some of the questions.
So you answered all of them brilliantly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.